Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his spaceship and looked at the green planet below. The planet had a name that was hard to say, Kepler 442b, but everyone just called it the Silent Planet. It was not really silent, though. For months, strange sounds had been coming from this world. Deep, loud roars that made even the bravest aliens shake with fear. Jake was human, and humans were new to the big group of alien races called the Galactic Council. The aliens had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, but humans had only joined them 50 years ago. Most aliens still thought humans were weak and not very smart. The sounds from the planet were getting stronger as Jake's ship got closer. His team could hear them through the ship's walls. They sounded like giant monsters roaring in anger. The alien experts said the creatures making these sounds must be huge, maybe as big as mountains. Lisa Rodriguez sat at her station and listened to the sounds through her headphones. She was the person who handled all the radio signals and messages. Her job was to figure out what the sounds meant, but these roars were like nothing she had ever heard before. "Captain," Lisa said, taking off her headphones, "the sounds are getting louder. Whatever is down there must be really big." Dr. Peter King was looking at his computer screen. He was the science officer, and his job was to study new planets and life forms. The numbers on his screen showed that the planet had good air to breathe and water to drink. It should be a nice place to live, but something was making those scary sounds. "The air is good," Dr. Kane said. "The temperature is just right for humans. But these sound readings are off the charts. Whatever is making those roars has to be massive." Amy Foster was the person who flew the ship. She was young, and this was her first big mission. Her hands were shaking as she heard the roars getting louder. She had read all the reports about this planet, and they all said the same thing: stay away. "Captain," Amy said, her voice quiet, "maybe we should listen to the council. They said this planet is too dangerous. Those things down there sound like they could eat our whole ship." The Galactic Council had sent 3 different teams to study this planet. The first team was made up of Zephyrians, tall, thin aliens that looked like walking sticks with big eyes. They were very smart and good at science, but they ran away as soon as they heard the roars. The second team was from the Vorthek race. They were made of crystal and could live in space without ships. They were very brave and strong, but even. They would not land on the planet. They said the sounds were too frightening. The third team never even got close to the planet. They were Moloch traders who usually went anywhere for money, but they turned their ships around when they were still days away from the planet. All the alien races agreed this planet was home to monsters that were too dangerous to face. Council put up warning signs in space around the planet. They told everyone to stay away, but Jake had a different idea. He had been studying the sound recordings for weeks. There was something about the roars that did not seem right. They were too regular, too organized. Real animals did not make sounds in such perfect patterns. "I think we should take a closer look," Jake said to his team. "Something about these sounds does not add up." Lisa looked at him like he was crazy. "Captain, 3 alien teams have already run away from this place. Maybe we should listen to them." "The aliens have been wrong before," Jake said. "Remember when they said humans could never build faster-than-light ships? Remember when they said we were too primitive to join the council?" Dr. Kane nodded. "The captain has a point. Humans have surprised the aliens before. Maybe we can handle whatever is down there." Amy was still scared, but she trusted her captain. Jake had never let his team down before. If he thought they should investigate, then maybe they should. "What do you want to do, Captain?" Amy asked. Jake walked over to the big window that showed the planet below. The roars were so loud now that they could feel them through the ships. Metal walls. But Jake was not afraid. He was curious. "We are going to land on that planet," Jake said. "We are going to find out what is making those sounds. And we are going to show the Galactic Council that humans are not afraid of a challenge." The team got ready for the landing. They checked their weapons and their spacesuits. They made sure their emergency beacons were working in case they needed to call for help. They loaded extra food and water onto their small landing ship Dot as they prepared to leave the main ship. The roars from the planet got even louder. The sounds were so deep and powerful that they made the ship shake. Amy had to hold onto her chair to stay steady. "Those things down there must be enormous," she whispered. But Jake was not thinking about monsters. He was thinking about the patterns in the sounds. There was something familiar about them, something that reminded him of home. He could not put his finger on what it was, but he knew they had to investigate. The landing ship separated from the main ship and began its trip down to the planet's surface. As they got closer, the roars got louder and more frequent. The team could see forests and mountains below, but they could not see any giant creatures. "Where are they?" Lisa asked, looking out the window. "I do not know," Jake said, "but we are going to find out." The landing ship touched down in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. The ground was covered with thick grass and strange purple flowers. It looked peaceful, but the roars were so loud that the team had to shout to hear each other. Jake picked his best people for the exploration team. Danny Price was a soldier who had fought in 3 wars. He was tough and knew how to handle dangerous situations. Helen Carter was a doctor who could fix any injury. Rick Johnson was good with machines and computers. They put on their spacesuits and checked their weapons one more time. The energy guns they carried could stop a charging elephant, but they did not know if that would be enough for whatever was making those terrible sounds. "Stay close together," Jake told his team as they left the ship. "We do not know what we are dealing with." The roars were coming from the north, where they could see a large hill covered with trees. But as they got closer, Jake noticed something strange. The hill was too smooth, too regular. It did not look like a natural hill at all. Double quotes Danny. "What do you think of that hill?" Jake asked. Danny looked through his binoculars. "That is not a hill, Captain. That is some kind of building. A really big building." Helen was using her medical scanner to check for life signs. "I am picking up movement inside that structure. Lots of movement, but the readings are weird." "Weird how?" Jake asked. "Well, they are big, but they are not moving like animals. They are moving in straight lines, like they are following paths." Rick was checking his computer tablet. "The building is made of metal, Captain. Some kind of alloy I have never seen before. It is definitely not natural." The team moved closer to the strange structure. The roars were getting so loud that they had to use hand signals to communicate. The ground under their feet was shaking with each roar. As they got closer, they could see that the building was huge. It was at least 1 mile long and half a mile wide. Parts of it were covered with vines and moss, like it had been there for a long time. But the metal underneath was still shiny and new-looking. "How long has this been here?" Helen asked, shouting over the noise. "I do not know," Jake replied, "but it has been here long enough for plants to grow on it." They walked around the building looking for a way in. The walls were smooth metal with no doors or windows that they could see. But the roars were definitely coming from inside. Danny found what looked like a control panel next to a section of wall. "Captain, over here. I think this might be an entrance." Rick ran over to look at the panel. "This is some kind of electronic lock. Give me a minute to figure it out." While Rick worked on the lock, the others spread out to keep watch. The roars were coming every few seconds now, and each one made the ground shake harder. "Got it," Rick said. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a corridor that went into the building. The corridor was dark, but they could see lights further inside. The roars were much louder now, and they could feel the vibrations in their bones. "This feels like a bad idea," Helen said. "Most of the best discoveries started with bad ideas," Jake replied. They entered the corridor with their weapons ready. The walls were made of the same smooth metal as the outside. There were pipes running along the ceiling, and the air smelled like oil and hot metal dot. As they walked deeper into the building, they started to hear other sounds mixed in with the roars. There were clicking sounds, humming sounds, and what sounded like voices, but they were too far away to understand. "Are those voices?" Danny asked. "I think so," Jake said, "but I cannot make out what they are saying." They came to a junction where the corridor split into 3 directions. The roars were coming from the left, so they went that way. The corridor opened up into a huge room with windows that looked down into an even bigger space. What they saw through the windows made them all stop and stare. The space below was filled with massive machines. There were conveyor belts carrying metal parts, huge hammers pounding on anvils, and furnaces that glowed white hot. Steam and smoke filled the air, and sparks flew everywhere. And working among all these machines were people. Not aliens, not monsters, but people who looked just like humans. "What the hell?" Danny whispered. The people below were wearing work clothes, hard hats, safety glasses, and thick gloves. They were operating the machines, carrying materials, and shouting instructions to each other. But their shouts were lost in the noise of the machines. "Those are humans," Helen said, her voice full of surprise. "That is impossible," Rick said. "How could humans be here? This planet is thousands of light years from Earth." Jake watched the workers below. They moved with purpose and skill. They clearly knew what they were doing. This was not a prison or a crash site. This was a functioning industrial facility. One of the workers walked over to a machine that had stopped working. He opened a panel and looked inside. Then he turned to another worker and shouted something. The team could not hear what he said because of all the noise, but Jake could read his lips. The worker was speaking English, and he was saying something about reloading a machine. "Did you see that?" Jake asked the others. "See what?" Helen replied. "That worker just spoke English. He said something about reloading." Danny laughed. "Captain, there is no way you could hear anything in all this noise." But Jake was sure of what he had seen. The worker had been speaking English, and he had been talking about reloading something. The roars they had been hearing were not coming from monsters at all. They were coming from the machines. Every time a big hammer hit an anvil, or a furnace door opened, or a press came down, it made a sound that traveled through the building and out into space. "The roars are not from animals," Jake said. "They are from the machines." His team looked at him like he was crazy. "Think about it," Jake continued. "Industrial machines are loud, really loud. And if you have a whole factory full of them running, at the same time, the noise would be enormous." Rick checked his tablet again. "The heat signatures I was seeing, they matched the size and movement of industrial equipment, not animals." Helen was looking at the workers below. "But how are there humans here? And why did not the council know about them?" "I do not know," Jake said, "but we are going to find out." Jake and his team spent the next hour watching the workers below. The more they watched, the more sure they became that these were definitely humans. They moved like humans, worked like humans, and even looked like humans from Earth. Rick found a way to turn down the sound dampeners in their suits so they could hear better. It was still very loud, but now they could make out some of the words the workers were shouting to each other. "Turn up the heat on furnace number 7, one worker called out. "We need more steel over here," another one yelled. "The press is jamming." Again, a third worker complained. All of the words were in English, and all of the workers sounded like they came from Earth. But that was impossible. No human colony ship had ever traveled this far from Earth. "We need to get down there and talk to them," Jake said. Danny was worried. "Captain, we do not know if they are friendly. Maybe they are criminals who escaped from Earth. Maybe they are dangerous. They are building things, not destroying them," Jake replied. "That is usually a good sign." Helen was studying the workers through her binoculars. "They look healthy and well-fed. This does not look like a prison or a place where people are being forced to work." They found a stairway that led down to the factory floor. The noise was even louder down there, but they could move around without being noticed. The workers were too busy with their jobs to pay attention to 4 people in spacesuits. Jake led his team to a quiet corner where they could talk without shouting. He took off his helmet and breathed the air inside the building. It was warm and smelled like metal and oil, but it was safe to breathe. "The air is good," he told the others. They all took off their helmets. A worker walked past them carrying a box of metal parts. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and strong arms. He looked tired, but not unhappy. "Excuse me," Jake called out to him. The worker stopped and looked at them with surprise. "Who are you people? How did you get in here?" "We are explorers from Earth," Jake said. "We came here because we heard sounds from your planet." The worker laughed. "Earth? You mean the old home world? Nobody has been there for decades." "What do you mean?" Helen asked. "Wait here," the worker said. "I need to get Grace. She will want to meet you." He walked away quickly, leaving Jake and his team confused. What did he mean by old home world? And who was Grace? A few minutes later, the worker came back with a woman who looked to be in her 50s. She had short brown hair and smart eyes. She was wearing the same work clothes as everyone else, but she moved like someone who was in charge. "I am Grace Williams," she said. "I run this facility. Ben here tells me you are from Earth." "That is right," Jake said. "I am Captain Jake Morrison. We are part of a human exploration team working with the Galactic Council." Grace's eyes got wide. "The Galactic Council? They found this planet?" "They have been getting reports of dangerous monsters here for months," Rick explained. "We came to investigate." Grace laughed so hard that she had to hold her sides. "Dangerous monsters? They think our factory machines are monsters?" "You mean the roars we heard are just from your machines?" Danny asked. "Of course," Grace said. "We run a 24-hour operation here. The machines never stop. I guess the sound carries pretty far." She led them to a small office where they could sit down and talk more quietly. The office had pictures on the walls of people working and families having dinner together. It looked like a normal human workplace. "How long have you been here?" Jake asked. "My grandparents were part of the original colony," Grace said. "They arrived here in 2157 on a ship called the New Horizon. That was 68 years ago. But there is no record of the New Horizon in our files," Helen said. Grace smiled. "That is because we wanted it that way. My grandparents and the other colonists decided to disappear on purpose." "Why would they do that?" Jake asked. "Because they learned about the Galactic Council," Grace explained. "They found out how the Council treats new species. They put limits on technology. They decide what planets you can visit and what you can build. They treat younger species like children." Rick was taking notes on his tablet. "So you have been hiding here for over 60 years?" "Not hiding," Grace corrected. "Preparing. We have been building and learning and getting ready for the day when we would join the galaxy as equals, not as junior members." She led them to another window that looked out over the factory floor. "This is just one of our facilities. We have dozens of them all over the planet. We make everything from computers to starships." "Starships?" Danny asked. "Oh, yes," Grace said. We have a whole fleet of them, much more advanced than anything Earth has built. We have had 60 years to improve on the designs." Jake was amazed. "How many people live here?" "About 2 million, Grace said. "We have cities, farms, schools, everything you would find on Earth. But we built it all underground or hidden in the forests. We did not want the Council to find us before we were ready." Helen was confused. "But why all the secrecy?" "The Council is not evil. They help new species develop." Grace shook her head. "The Council helps species develop the way they want them to develop. They decide what technology is safe and what is dangerous. They decide which planets you can colonize and which ones you cannot. They treat every new species like it is their property. We have seen it happen to other species." Then added, "The Corvani had faster-than-light technology, but the Council made them give it up because it was too dangerous for a young species. The Tylani had weapons that could have protected them from raiders, but the Council said they were not ready for that kind of power. So your people decided to develop in secret," Jake said. "Exactly," Grace replied. "We figured that if we could build a civilization that was already advanced when the Council found us, they would have to treat us as equals, instead of children." Rick was looking at his tablet. "The technology I am seeing here is incredible. Some of these machines are more advanced than anything on Earth." "We have had time to think and experiment," Grace said. "When you are not spending time fighting wars or dealing with politics, you can focus on building and learning." Jake realized that they had stumbled onto something huge. This was not just a hidden human colony. This was a secret human civilization that had been preparing for decades to emerge onto the galactic stage. "What happens now?" he asked. Grace smiled. "Now we decide if it is time to stop hiding. You found us, which means our secret is out. Maybe it is time for the galaxy to meet the real human race." The roars from the machines continued to echo through the building, but now Jake heard them differently. They were not the sounds of monsters or danger. They were the sounds of human industry, human determination, and human preparation. The Galactic Council was about to get a very big surprise. Grace Williams led Jake and his team through a door that looked like it was just part of the wall. Behind it was an elevator that went down deep into the ground. As they descended, Grace explained more about their hidden civilization. "What you saw upstairs is just the tip of the iceberg," she said. "Most of our cities are underground. We learned early on that the best way to stay hidden was to build where no one would look." The elevator went down for almost 5 minutes before it stopped. When the doors opened, Jake and his team saw something that took their breath away. They were standing at the edge of a huge underground city. Buildings stretched out in all directions, connected by wide streets with vehicles moving along them. There were parks with real trees and grass, shopping areas with people walking around, and even a lake with boats on it. "This is Haven," Grace said, "our capital city, home to about 500,000 people." "This is incredible," Helen said, staring at the city. "How did you build all this without anyone knowing?" "Very carefully," Grace replied, "and with a lot of help from some very smart people." They walked down a street that was busy with people going about their daily lives. Children were playing in parks, adults were shopping and talking, and everyone looked happy and healthy. It was like a normal human city, except it was hundreds of feet underground. The original colonists were not just random people, Grace explained as they walked. They were carefully chosen. Engineers, scientists, doctors, teachers, farmers, all the people you need to build a civilization from scratch. Danny was amazed by the technology he saw. "These vehicles do not make any noise. What powers them?" "Clean fusion reactors," Grace said. "We solved the energy problem about 30 years ago. Every building in every city has its own power source that will last for centuries." They stopped at a restaurant where Grace bought them all lunch. The food was delicious. Fresh vegetables, meat that tasted like beef, and bread that was still warm from the oven. You grow your own food down here? Rick asked. We have underground farms that produce everything we need, Grace said. We also have livestock, cows, pigs, chickens. We are completely self-sufficient. But surely the council's sensors would detect all this activity, Jake said. Grace smiled. That is where our technology comes in. We have developed shielding that blocks almost all forms of detection. To anyone scanning from space, this planet looks empty, except for some basic plant and animal life. After lunch, Grace took them to meet Carl Thompson, the head of their engineering department. Carl was a big man with a gray beard who looked like he could build anything with his bare hands. Carl's grandfather was one of the original colonists. Grace explained. He was the chief engineer on the New Horizon. Carl showed them around his workshop, which was filled with machines and devices that looked like they came from the future. We have been improving human technology for 60 years, he said. While Earth was busy joining the Galactic Council and playing politics, we were busy building. He showed them a device that looked like a small metal box. This is a portable fusion reactor. It can power a city for a year, and it is small enough to carry in your backpack. That is impossible, Rick said. Earth's best fusion reactors are the size of buildings. Earth's fusion reactors are based on old technology, Carl replied. We started fresh and built from the ground up. No politics, no committees, no arguments about what was safe or practical. Just pure engineering. He showed them other inventions, materials that were stronger than anything on Earth, computers that could think faster than human brains, and medical devices that could heal almost any injury. We have cured cancer, stopped aging, and eliminated most diseases, Carl said. Our people live longer, healthier lives than anyone on Earth. Why did you not share this technology with Earth? Helen asked. Because Earth is part of the Galactic Council now, Grace said. Any technology we gave to Earth would have to be approved by the Council first. They would decide if humans were ready for it. Jake was beginning to understand the full scope of what they had discovered. This was not just a hidden colony. This was a completely separate human civilization that had developed beyond anything Earth had achieved. How many cities do you have? He asked. 12 major cities and dozens of smaller settlements, Grace said. We have about 2 million people spread across the planet. Each city specializes in different things: manufacturing, research, agriculture, education. She took them to a transport station where they boarded a high-speed train that traveled through underground tunnels. The train was quiet and smooth, and it moved faster than any vehicle Jake had ever been on. This train travels at over 500 miles per hour, Grace explained. We can get from one side of the planet to the other in just a few hours. The next city they visited was called New Detroit, and it was focused on manufacturing. The factories here were even bigger than the one they had first seen, and they were producing everything from household items to military equipment. Military equipment? Danny asked. We are not naive, Grace said. We know that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. When we reveal ourselves, we want to be able to defend ourselves if necessary. She showed them a factory that was producing weapons and armor. The weapons looked more advanced than anything the human military had, and the armor was made from materials that could stop energy beams. We have also been building ships, Grace said. Would you like to see them? They took another train to a city called Starport, which was built around a huge underground hangar. Inside the hangar were dozens of spaceships, each one sleek and advanced-looking. These ships are faster and more powerful than anything in the Galactic Council's fleet, Grace said. We have been testing them in secret for years. One of the ships was particularly impressive. It was long and silver, with graceful curves and what looked like advanced weapon systems. "This is the Liberty," Grace said. "Our flagship. It can travel faster than light without using the Council's jump gates. It has weapons that can destroy a planet and shields that can protect it from almost anything." Jake was overwhelmed. "You have built a fleet of warships?" "We have built a fleet of exploration and defense ships," Grace corrected. "We hope we never have to use them as weapons, but we are prepared if we have to." Rick was studying the ships with his tablet. "The technology in these ships is decades ahead of anything on Earth. How did you develop all this? When you have 2 million people working together toward a common goal, and you have 60 years to do it, you can accomplish amazing things," Grace said. "But what is your goal?" Jake asked. "What do you want to do with all this technology and power?" Grace looked at him seriously. "We want to take our place in the galaxy as equals. We want to show the Galactic Council that humans are not a young species that needs to be protected and guided. We are a mature civilization that can contribute to galactic society." "And if the Council does not accept you as equals?" Danny asked. Grace smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. "Then we will make them accept us. We have been preparing for 60 years, Captain Morrison. We are ready for whatever comes next." As they stood in the hangar surrounded by advanced human technology, Jake realized that the balance of power in the galaxy was about to change. The Galactic Council thought they knew what humans were capable of, but they were about to learn that. They had been very wrong. The roars from the planet had not been from monsters after all. They had been from the most advanced human civilization in the galaxy, preparing to emerge from the shadows and take their place among the stars. Grace Williams stood with Jake and his team on the observation deck of the Liberty, looking out over the massive underground hangar. Dozens of ships filled the space, each one representing years of human engineering and determination. "The time for hiding is over," Grace said. "Your arrival here means our secret is out. The Galactic Council will eventually figure out what those roars really are." Jake looked at the ships around them. Each one was more advanced than anything he had seen on Earth or in the Council fleets. "What are you planning to do?" "We are going to introduce ourselves to the galaxy," Grace replied, "but not as supplicants asking for permission to join. We are going to arrive as equals demanding respect." She led them to a command center where dozens of people were working at computer stations. Large screens showed maps of the galaxy and the positions of Council ships and facilities. "We have been monitoring Council communications for decades," Grace explained. "We know about every major political development, every military movement, every technological breakthrough. We probably know more about the Council than most Council members do." Carl Thompson was at one of the stations, coordinating with the other cities. "All facilities are ready," he reported. "New Detroit is at full production. Starport has all ships fueled and ready, and the other cities are prepared for whatever comes next." "What exactly is going to happen?" Helen asked. Grace smiled. "We are going to give the Galactic Council a demonstration of human capability. Not the limited capability they think they know, but our real capability." She pressed a button on a control panel, and the screens around the room changed to show the surface of the planet. For months, the Council has been afraid of the roars from this planet. They think those sounds come from dangerous monsters. "But they are really from your factories," Rick said. "Exactly. But today, they are going to learn what those roars really mean." Grace gave a signal, and alarms began ringing throughout the facility. All around them, people moved with practiced efficiency. They had clearly prepared for this moment for a long time. "All cities report ready," Carl said. "Surface facilities are opening blast doors. Ships are moving to launch positions." Jake and his team were taken to a viewing area where they could see what was happening on the surface. Through cameras placed around the planet, they watched as huge metal doors opened in the ground. The doors had been invisible before, hidden by grass and trees, but now they revealed massive underground hangars. Ships began rising from the hangars. Not just a few ships, but dozens of them. Each one was sleek and advanced, and they moved with a grace that no Earthship had ever achieved. "How many ships do you have?" Danny asked. "Enough," Grace replied. "We have been building for 60 years. Every city has its own fleet." The ships rose into the sky and took positions around the planet. From space, it would look like a powerful fleet had suddenly appeared from nowhere. "The Council ships in this sector are already detecting us," Grace said, watching the displays. "They are probably very confused right now." Jake's communication device started beeping. It was a message from his own ship, still in orbit around the planet. "Captain Morrison," came the voice of Lisa Rodriguez. "We are seeing massive energy signatures all over the planet. Dozens of ships just appeared out of nowhere. Are you all right down there?" "We are fine, Lisa," Jake replied. "Stand by for further instructions." Grace was listening to Council communications on her headset. 3 Council patrol ships are approaching the planet. They are demanding to know what is happening. "What are you going to tell them?" Jake asked. "The truth," Grace said. "That they have been wrong about this planet from the beginning." She opened a communication channel to the Council ships. "This is Grace Williams, speaking for the people of Kepler 442b. We are human, and we have been living on this planet for 68 years. There was silence on the channel for a moment. Then a Zephyrian voice responded, "That is impossible. Our sensors show only primitive life forms on that planet." "Your sensors have been fooled by our technology," Grace replied. "The roars you have been hearing are not from monsters. They are from our factories and manufacturing facilities." "You claim to be human?" the Zephyrian asked. "Humans are a young species. They do not have the technology to hide from our sensors." Grace smiled. "Would you like a demonstration of human technology?" Without waiting for an answer, she gave a signal to Carl. On the screens, they watched as one of the human ships fired a beam of energy at a large asteroid floating in space near the planet. The asteroid simply vanished, completely destroyed by the weapon. "That asteroid was over a mile wide," Grace said into the communicator. "Our weapons can do that to any target we choose." The Council ships immediately began backing away from the own planet. "This is impossible," the Zephyrian said. "Humans do not have such advanced weapons." "These humans do," Grace replied. "We have spent 60 years developing our technology without interference from the Council. We have advanced far beyond what you think we are capable of." Jake was amazed at how calm Grace sounded. She was basically threatening the most powerful organization in the galaxy, and she acted like it was just another day at work. "What do you want?" the Zephyrian asked. "We want recognition," Grace said. "We want to be treated as equals in the galactic community. We want full membership in the Galactic Council with all the rights and privileges that come with it." "The Council does not negotiate with unknown species," the Zephyrian replied. "You must submit to our evaluation protocols." Grace laughed. "We are not unknown species. We are humans, and we do not submit to anyone's evaluation." She gave another signal, and more ships rose from the planet's surface. Soon there were over 100 human ships in formation around the planet. "This is our evaluation of you," Grace said. "We have the technology to destroy any Council fleet you send against us. We have the industrial capacity to build 1,000 ships for every one you can build. We have the scientific knowledge to develop weapons you cannot even imagine." "You are threatening the Galactic Council," the Zephyrian said, his voice shaking with fear. "We are not threatening anyone," Grace replied calmly. "We are simply showing you what we are capable of. The Council has a choice. You can accept us as equals and partners, or you can try to treat us like children who need your guidance. Jake watched the displays as more council ships arrived in the system. Word was spreading fast through the galaxy that something big was happening at Kepler 442b. The council fleet is growing, Carl reported. We now have 15 council ships in sensor range, with more coming. Grace was not worried. Let them come. They need to see what humanity has become. She opened a new communication channel, this one broadcasting to all council ships in the area. This is Grace Williams, speaking for the free human civilization of Kepler 442b. For 68 years, we have developed our technology and our society without interference. We have built cities, ships, and weapons that surpass anything in the Council's arsenal. On the main screen, they could see the Council ships maintaining their distance. The ship captains were probably reporting back to their home worlds, asking for instructions on how to deal with this impossible situation. We do not want war, Grace continued, but we will not accept second-class treatment. Humanity is ready to take its place as a major power in this galaxy. A new voice came over the communication system. This one belonged to a Vorthic, one of the crystal beings who were among the most powerful members of the Council. I am Commander Zex of the Council Defense Force, the voice said. You claim to represent humanity, but Earth is already a member of the Council. How do you explain this contradiction? Grace had been expecting this question. Earth represents one branch of humanity. We represent another. When our ancestors left Earth, they chose a different path. We developed separately, and we developed better. That is a serious claim, Commander Zex replied. The Council cannot simply accept your word for this. Then test us, Grace said. Send your best scientists to examine our technology. Send your military experts to evaluate our capabilities. Send your diplomats to negotiate with us. But do it as equals, not as judges evaluating a primitive species. Jake realized that Grace was playing a dangerous game. She was essentially forcing the Galactic Council to either accept humanity as a major power or go to war with them. But looking at the advanced ships around him, he thought she might actually win that war. The Council will need time to consider this situation, Commander. Zex said. Of course, Grace replied. But while you are considering, remember this. The roars you have been hearing from this planet for months were not from monsters. They were from human industry. They were from human determination. They were from human preparation. She paused, letting that sink in. And if you think those sounds were frightening, imagine what the sounds of human weapons would be like. The communication channel went silent. The Council ships remained at a safe distance, but Jake could see more of them arriving every hour. What happens now? He asked Grace. Now we wait, she said. The Council has to decide how they want to handle this. They can accept us as equals, or they can try to force us to submit. Either way, humanity is no longer hiding.